Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers officer conduct, reasonable suspicion, and free speech, and was submitted anonymously, but was originally featured on the Lackluster YouTube channel. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. Before we dive into the interaction, I want to give a big thanks to the sponsor of this episode, the Commuter 2 speaker from Cove. I've been using the Commuter 2 for over a year and a half now, and between its amazing sound quality, ease of use, and small form factor, there is no need for any other speaker. The Commuter can last for 7 hours on a single charge. It has a water-resistant rating of IPX7 and has a built-in microphone for taking calls. But best of all, the Commuter splits into 2 speakers, giving you full stereo audio. While connected, the Commuter speakers offer a 360 surround sound effect, and when separated, the speakers convert into left and right stereo channels, which makes it perfect for taking on a trip or connecting to your laptop at home. The Commuter 2 is now available in a ton of different colors to match whatever outfit or environment you're listening in. Right now, Cove is offering members of the ATA community a 68% off or more discount when you use code AUDIT68 at checkout, or click on the link in the description. This discount is a Black Friday preview month, so click the link before it's too late. Thanks again to Cove for sponsoring this episode. On May 9th, 2021, 2 individuals who wish to remain anonymous were walking near the intersection of Del Mar Boulevard and Delcrest Drive in University City, Missouri to meet up with one of their friends who was on break at his workplace. As the 2 rounded a corner, one of the individuals made an obscene gesture at a passing police cruiser. Sergeant Larry Beckton of the University City Police Department allegedly came to a stop and engaged in a brief verbal exchange with the individual before deciding to exit his patrol vehicle and confront the citizen.
You guys live over here?
Free speech is a First Amendment.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
But do you live over here?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see your ID. I need to see your guys' ID.
No, thanks. What crime are we suspected of?
Okay, you guys are aimlessly walking out around here?
We're not aimlessly walking out. Sir.
No, I need
all the time.
Okay, do you live over here?
Yes, I live in this neighborhood.
I need to get your ID from you.
No,
Give me your name.
Sir, no, thank you.
No, it's not an option.
I'm going to keep walking.
No, you're being detained right now. Both you guys are being detained.
What?
For suspicious activity. You're aimlessly walking around. I need to see your ID.
I don't have my ID,
sir. Okay, sir, step over here for a second. I need to see your ID. You're being detained right now.
What's your name and badge number?
That's not my name. Is right here.
Okay.
I need to see your
number?
I need to see your ID. Or you need to give me some ID. It's not an option. Or I would take you to the station and get your ID.
Sir, is this because I flicked you off?
No, you're aimlessly walking around here.
I came from my house.
Okay. I'm gonna put you in handcuffs right now. Go ahead and stand up, and you go ahead and resist if you want to.
I'm not.
You're being detained.
Can you video?
Okay, have a seat. You have anything that's going to stick me?
No. That's my wallet. If you really want my ID, that's that.
Have a seat. Go ahead and stand up for me, sir. You have any weapons on you?
No.
I'm going to pat you down for weapons.
Dude, we came to smoke a cigarette.
Okay.
I came from my house. My friend works at Walgreens.
Okay, you're aimlessly walking around. There's been a lot of stuff that's going on around here.
Here, Sergeant Beckton informs the individuals that he was detaining them because he believed that they were, quote, aimlessly walking around, and that there's been, quote, a lot of stuff going on around here. As discussed on many episodes of ATA, in order for an officer to detain a citizen, they must have met the reasonable suspicion standard set forth by the Supreme Court in the infamous 1968 Terry v. Ohio case. Although officers are not required to have reasonable suspicion of a particular crime, they still must be able to articulate a set of objective facts that would have led them to believe that an individual may have been involved in some type of criminal activity. Considering the set of facts that Sergeant Beckton was working with, it seems as though the only crime that he may have legitimately been able to build reasonable suspicion around would have been some type of loitering violation. However, neither the state of Missouri nor the municipality of University City have drafted any loitering laws that would be relevant to this situation. In fact, the only law that involves the concept of loitering in Missouri falls under Section 566.150 of the Missouri Revised Statutes and applies only to individuals who have been convicted of committing sex crimes. While many states outside of Missouri do have loitering laws on their books, there is a great deal of contention amongst legal scholars regarding the constitutionality constitutionality of outlawing aimless wandering. The first significant challenge to general loitering laws was established in the 1972 Supreme Court case of Papachristou versus City of Jacksonville, where the court nullified a vagrancy ordinance due to vagueness and the fact that it, quote, encourages arbitrary and erratic arrests and convictions, it makes criminal activities that by modern standards are normally innocent, and it places almost unfettered discretion in the hands of the police. Therefore, it is highly unlikely that a court would uphold Sergeant Becton's formulation of reasonable suspicion based purely on the notion that these individuals appear to be walking aimlessly down the street, even if Missouri did have an actionable ordinance against loitering.
Explaining to you what happened. Came from my house.
Okay, have a seat. Have a seat. And I'm asking you for your ID. Okay, give us your name. Is your ID in your wallet?
Yes. And I said I don't want to ID
have
myself.
Put your hands down.
What's your last name?
Me?
Yeah.
One.
What's your social?
I don't know that by heart. I have it on my phone.
Here, pull it up.
Yeah, check them. 28s and 29s.
Got a fragile ego, bro. All because I flicked you off.
No, that's disrespectful. That's disrespectful.
Why is that of your concern? It might be disrespectful.
No, I'm not concerned about that.
Stop me.
You can do whatever you want to do, young man, but at the same time,
That's exactly what I was doing.
yes, but if you aimlessly walking around here, I want to know. I want to know. I want to know. Listen to me. I'm letting you talk. And let me talk. Let me explain to you. We have every right to stop you to find out who you are and where you live.
Sergeant Becton tells the individuals that officers have every right to stop a citizen to ascertain their identity and determine where they live. However, in the absence of reasonable suspicion, this statement could not be further from the truth. While the Supreme Court has routinely stated that there are no rigid guidelines for developing reasonable suspicion, the court has concluded that being in a high crime area and running from police was enough evidence to be detained for further investigation. In the 2000 Supreme Court case of Illinois versus Wardlow, the court reasoned that unprovoked running in an attempt to avoid officers is not suspicious in and of itself, but when coupled with the fact that it was done in a high crime area, it does warrant an investigation. This suggests that as little as two corresponding facts can serve as a basis for building enough reasonable suspicion to detain and investigate an individual, but they must be working in tandem, given that Sergeant Becton specifically mentioned that there had been, quote, a lot of stuff going on around here, and assuming that he's referring to criminal activity, it could be argued that the area would be considered a high crime area by a court. Along with essentially establishing minimum requirements for reasonable suspicion, the Wardlow case also established the concept of a high crime area, but the Supreme Court failed to properly articulate what qualities an area must have in order to be considered high crime. This has led to such an open-ended interpretation of high crime areas that it is nearly impossible to assign a legitimate legal definition to the phrase, and high crime areas have been the subject of many legal studies and law reviews in an effort to suggest how they should be interpreted and applied to any given scenario. All that said, even if a court were to conclude that the area Sergeant Becton stopped the individuals in was, in fact, a high crime area, the sergeant would still require at least one additional factor to satisfy the reasonable suspicion standard needed to initiate a detainment. And, as mentioned before, it is highly unlikely that a court would accept the notion that aimlessly wandering was a legitimate factor to consider when developing reasonable suspicion. Even in stop and identify states, like Missouri, officers must have reasonable suspicion to detain and investigate citizens. And it is relatively clear from the body cam footage that Sergeant Becton failed to meet that standard in any form or fashion.
Okay. Period.
Okay, if that's what you feel like.
How old are you?
22.
You're 22. Have you ever been arrested for anything?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any warrants right now?
No.
Okay. So where are you guys on your way to now?
Right this bench right here.
Okay.
Smoke a cigarette with my friend and go home.
I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you right now. Okay, so you normally come over here, go to the Walgreens, sit on the bench?
Not always this bench, sometimes this
Okay.
bench, sometimes we just stand.
Okay. But future reference, young man, you don't disrespect the police like that. You don't disrespect the police like that.
Yeah.
and you're just aimlessly just walking around. I want to know. I'm doing my job. I want to know who you are and where you live.
Hoods too.
Hoods are so super suspicious when it's cold outside.
They're just not good anymore.
And you can record, but step back a little bit. They're being detained. Go ahead and continue recording, but I want you to step away. Absolutely.
A lot of danger going on.
And you still talking.
Yeah, because you guys are pieces of for stopping people who want to go on to break for a cigarette because I flicked you off. That now all of a sudden I'm acting suspicious. If I would have not flicked you off and we would have kept walking, you would have never. This stop never would have happened. You would have never accused me of doing suspicious activity. Correct? I thought.
Oh, now you want me to answer your question? Okay. No, I don't. It doesn't work like that.
Sergeant Becton tells one of the individuals that he shouldn't disrespect the police by making gestures at them, essentially confirming that the individual's gestures played some role in his decision to conduct an investigation. As discussed on many past episodes of ATA, the Supreme Court has concluded that obscene gestures, such as displaying the middle finger, are generally protected under the First Amendment. In the 1972 Supreme Court case of Miller versus California, the court noted that, quote, all ideas having even the slightest redeeming social importance, unorthodox ideas, controversial ideas, even ideas hateful to the prevailing climate of opinion, have the full protection of the First Amendment guarantees, unless excludable because they encroach upon the limited area of more important interests. The Miller case essentially concluded that an expressive act must be vehemently detrimental and useless to society in order to be considered unprotected speech. Furthermore, as recently as 2019, the Eighth Circuit Court, which presides over Missouri, has concluded that expressing contempt for members of law enforcement through the use of vulgar language or gestures is protected by the First Amendment in the case of Toriraja versus City of Fort Smith. In the Toriraja case, the court denied an officer qualified immunity for basing an arrest on the fact that the defendant had shouted a vulgarity at the officer. And, as discussed in previous episodes of ATA, the concept of free speech generally makes no distinction between actual speech and actions designed to convey a specific message. Not only was the individual who decided to make an obscene gesture at Sergeant Becton protected by the First and Fourth Amendments of the Constitution, but it's also extremely likely that the sergeant would not be entitled to qualified immunity in the event that he was sued for conducting this stop, because the Eighth Circuit has clearly established the notion that detaining an individual for expressing disdain for law enforcement is illegal.
Are you guys related?
No.
No.
Both violent, no more.
Okay. Let's get their information.
Can I ask you, how do I get an officer complaint form?
And
What's
put them on
that
the first.
process?
Better stand up. I'll take these cuffs off.
What's the process of getting an officer complaint form?
You come down to the station or call the police station.
Okay.
Sergeant Becton released the two individuals, and eventually the officers left the scene without further incident. Following the encounter, the primary individual involved in the interaction filed a formal complaint against Sergeant Becton and obtained the body cam footage through a public records request. In a city council meeting that took place on October 11th, City Manager Gregory Rose announced that an internal investigation had occurred and resulted in what he believed to be appropriate corrective action, but he did not disclose what exactly that action was. He went on to state that he did not believe that Sergeant Becton's conduct was grossly negligible and that the chief and officers of the University City Police Department were committed to respecting the rights of University City citizens. It should be noted that Sergeant Becton was previously sued for an alleged illegal seizure and unlawful arrest stemming from an incident that occurred in 2016. The individuals involved in today's interaction said that they intended to sue Sergeant Becton as well and have already contacted the ACLU for help. Overall, Sergeant Becton gets an F for displaying a fundamental misunderstanding of free speech and reasonable suspicion, intentionally misrepresenting the facts of the encounter in an effort to justify his actions, and for maintaining a hostile and unprofessional demeanor throughout the interaction. Setting aside the notion that Sergeant Becton likely initiated this stop for being flipped off, rather than on the basis of a suspicion of criminal activity, his actions would almost certainly be frowned upon by a court. Citizens should be able to wander aimlessly along publicly funded streets if they wish to do so, and it would be contrary to the tenets of the Fourth Amendment to grant members of law enforcement the unfettered authority to stop anyone who they believed didn't have direct and articulable intentions for being in public. Even when affording him the benefit of the doubt, Sergeant Beckton's logic for initiating this stop is almost as tyrannical as stopping a citizen for expressing free speech in a public forum, and it's difficult to see how University City Manager Rose could conclude that the sergeant's intentions weren't grossly negligent, even if the public is to believe that he stopped these individuals for aimlessly walking around. You are free to draw your own conclusions about Sergeant Beckton's true intentions, but there's little doubt that his investigation and detainment of these individuals was unprofessional and likely unlawful. The unnamed individuals get an A-, because although they neglected to invoke their right to remain silent, they remained calm and collected throughout the encounter, rightfully challenged the legitimacy of the stop, and followed up this interaction with the proper channel of complaint. Whatever your opinion may be about the ethicality of disrespecting random members of law enforcement, the courts have been very clear that such expressions are protected by the First Amendment, and the citizen involved in this interaction was well within their rights to express their opinion without being detained and investigated. The concept of free speech is often contentious and at odds with what is typically accepted as polite behavior within American society. But being offended or uncomfortable with what certain people say or do is a small price to pay for enjoying the freedom to express oneself to an equally challenging degree. Banning certain forms of speech merely because they are offensive is an extremely slippery slope, and the Supreme Court has recognized how easily a limit on free speech can morph into overbearing government restrictions and official abuse. I commend the unnamed citizens involved in this encounter for challenging Sergeant Beckton's conduct and taking a stand for their First Amendment rights. Let us know if there's an interaction or legal topic you would like us to discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out my second channel for even more police interaction content.